natural object of creation in pairs. Is reproduction and propagation of each of their own species. He has made you pairs from amongst yourselves and pairs amongst cattle to multiply you. And read this in Surah 42, ayat 11. And in Surah Al-Baqarah, your wives are your farms. And we're not talking about old McDonald's farm with a chick here and a chick there. We're not talking about that. These verses of Quran show first that as far as propagation of the human race, Islamic education is very comprehensive, and it embraces all fields of study. It has broken new grounds. And the sexual instinct in man, like that of hunger and thirst, is very strong and aggressive. And it is necessary to moderate it in order to strike a balance, the mizan, as I mentioned. And as I mentioned, that your wives are your farms, and these verses the Quran show first. And as I mentioned, that's the propagation of the human race. The sex urge is man's animal. But natural instinct to procreate and keep his race alive on the earth. It's a lawful urge. It is a lawful urge and must not be suppressed. But reasonable and full opportunity should be given for its satisfaction. The relationship of human pairs is different from animal pairs. The physical structure of human pairs is so designed as to keep them in an abiding relationship, as is found between a cultivator and his farm. It binds them in a permanent and close relationship. The natural biological sex attraction between a human pair is very strong and is of the same nature as found in other animals. Each member of a species feels very powerful, a powerful urge to protection, to procreation, and is instinctively attracted toward other members of the opposite sex. If this urge is not properly controlled, and discipline, it can lead to sexual anarchy and make man a sheer brute animal. You understand? In view of the strong and powerful biological sex urge in man, it is necessary that it should be brought under some discipline and control. Otherwise, it could destroy the same community which it was supposed to maintain and preserve through procreation. Islam has fully reorganized the value of this instinct and the probable dangers if it is left uncontrolled in the animal kingdom, as it is in the animal kingdom. It has therefore restricted sexual relationships other than matrimony. It has advocated marriage and discouraged the life of celibacy. The normal and natural way of life for a Muslim is to get married, raise a family. And this is the only course open for a Muslim. To satisfy his natural instinct of sex through conjugal relationships, it forbids sexual relations outside the bounds of marriage. Do not come near to adultery, for it is a shameful deed and an evil opening the way to other evils. And read it in Surah 17, ayat 32. Even in marriage, it places certain restrictions on Muslims. It prohibits certain relations for marriage. And read it in Surah 4, ayat 24. It restricts the number of women one can marry at one and the same time. If you fear that you will not be able to do just to the orphans, you may marry 2 or 3 or 4. But mind you, you have to treat each one of them equally. And that's why I said it is best. If you can't do that, you marry one. And you can read this in Surah 4. And this verse of the Quran limits the number of wives. As I mentioned, it's 4. And that also with the provision of justice to all wives. Thus, it allows polygamy up to 4, as I mentioned, provided that justice is done, as I mentioned also. And those who cannot do justice are advised to marry just one. If you get one a house, you got 3 more houses you got to get. Get one a new car, got 3 more cars you got to get. And with these restrictions, Islam has closed the door to sexual excess, perversion, and even suppression, and allowed marriage in public with all other women, and except for those mentioned, all others are lawful. provided you seek them in marriage with gifts from your property, desiring chastity, not lust. And read it in Surah 4, ayah 24. Thus, sexual relations had not only been made lawful with matrimony, but have also been recommended as a good, virtuous act. The Holy Prophet, alayhi salam, strongly advised his followers to marry. It is reported by Abdullah bin Mas'ud that Allah's Messenger, alayhi salam, said, young man, those of you who can support a wife should marry. And this is the message that we want to get to our youngsters before they get out there and get these appetites that go unchecked by knowledge, spasmodic and impulsive actions, getting with this one, getting with that one, all over the place. This is a message that we want to give. And a brother said to me, well, brother, we don't have no young brothers in the community, but we got brothers and sisters here that are young at heart. I know it. And not only that, they're the ones that can convey the message to the youth. And this has to be done. When a man marries, he has fulfilled half the relationship, half of the deen. It's also reported that the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, saying, those who wish to be pure and purified when they meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should marry free, not three, free women. Even though you can marry three, like I said, but you have to take care of them all. And Abu Umam reported Allah's Messenger as saying, at the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a believer gains nothing better for himself than a good wife who obeys him. If he gives her a command, pleases him if he looks at her, is true to him if he adjures her to do something, and is sincere toward him regarding her person and his property if he's absent. All these commandments of the Quran, they're all Quranic commandments. Of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they show how Islam has tried to restrict the sexual relations to marriage only, and to stop all forms or ways outside of the relationship. It has allowed the satisfaction of this natural instinct in a natural way through marriage and raising a family, which is commendable in every way. Islam has very successfully satisfied the emotional and sexual aspect of man's nature, his natural instinct, and at the same time reduces tension and arrange for legitimate procreation That's an important key. Procreation. I don't know if you ever looked at the show on TV, Divorce Court. It had two men wanting to divorce. Two men. And here you go. Two men have gone totally against the Din al-Fitr, the natural pattern established by Allah, because for one, they cannot procreate. And this is what's going on in the society. This is why we need these instructions and this guidance and pass it on. And then there's the interfamily alliance and group solidarity, which form a bedrock on which human civilization is built. Sex relations not only demand mutual love between a husband and his wife, and between pairs, they are pairs, but also demand that they should have a deep spiritual relationship. The love for the offspring is also natural. His mother bears him with much pain, and he is not weaned before he is 2 years of age. Read that in Surah 31, ayat 14. And in Surah Al-Ahqaf, with much pain his mother bears him, and with much pain she bears him into the world. And he is born and weaned in 30 months. Read it in Surah 46. The man is also attracted to the offspring, his offspring, though not as much as his female mate. Men are tempted by the lure of women and offspring, and you can read that in Surah 3, ayat 14. The natural love between the pairs helps in cementing and building of blood and marital relations, which give birth to families, clans, and nations, which finally lead to the rise of civilization. It was he who created man from water, gave him relations of blood and marriage, and read it in 25, Surah 25, ayat 45. And in Surah Al-Hudra, men, we have created you from a male and a female and divided you into nations and clans, that you may be able to recognize each other. Read it in Surah 49. Thus, marriage, by creating blood relations of decent, provides the basic and natural foundation for human society. And the growth of its culture and civilization. In this way, the institution of marriage has served the dual purpose of procreation of the human race and establishment of an organized social life. The rights of the husband and the wife are determined according to principles and justice and fair play in Islam. Both enjoy rights as well as duties on the basis of equality as human beings. Women have the same rights as men, and women shall have rights similar to the rights enjoyed by men against them, according to what is equitable and just. But men have a degree of advantage over them, and you read this in Surah Al-Baqarah. Thus, as far as social rights are concerned, both the husband and the wife enjoy perfect equality with each other. But as the head of the family, the husband enjoys the benefit of senior partner among equals. It's like that of a president over the chairman amongst members of the executive committee. The fundamental nature and purpose of the family relationship is described. Your wives are your tilth unto you. So approach your tilth when and how you desire. But do some good act for your souls beforehand. And fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and know that you are to meet him in the hereafter. You know you can read that in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 223. Verily, delicate matters relating to the sexual relationship between husband and wife are mentioned here in a very comprehensive way without offending any cultural or social customs, norms, or personal consideration. Manners, time, and place are very significant in sex morality. And Muhammad, alayhi salam, fully kept it in mind and set a very high standard in the matter, as he loved purity and cleanliness in everything. He did not forget this in sex education. Sex is not a thing to be ashamed of or to be treated lightly or to be indulged in excess. It is compared to a husband's tilth. It is a serious affair to him. He sows the seeds in order to reap the harvest, but does not sow out of season, nor cultivate in a manner which will injure or exhaust the soil. He is wise and considerate and does not run riot. Coming from the simile back to the human beings, every kind of mutual consideration is required. But above all, we must remember that even in these matters, there's a spiritual aspect. And we must never forget our souls and that we are responsible to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was carnal-minded men who invented the doctrine, original sin. Behold, says the psalmist, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. And this is in Psalms. This is entirely repudiated in Islam. in which the office of father and mother is held in the highest veneration. Every child of pure love is born pure. Celibacy is not necessarily a virtue. It is clear from these teachings of Muhammad alayhi salam that women are not created merely for the enjoyment women are not created for just the pure enjoyment of men. And this relationship is serious, an affair as, as that of a farmer in his field. He does not go to his field merely for recreation and enjoyment, but also for cultivation. Man goes to his wife to produce children. But at the same time, in the very act of production, he enjoys immense pleasure from the relationship. It's like the farmer who, while sowing the seed, enjoys the beautiful and refreshing scenery and cool breeze in the field. However, the law is not concerned with the actual method of cultivation, but that the man must go to the field and not elsewhere, and also to his own field. And this simile of husband and wife, as the farmer and the farm contains encyclopedic knowledge of sexual relations, which all the sex experts have not been able to express properly and effectively in many volumes of books. It indicates very beautifully, observing all the proprieties and the niceties of virtuous and God-fearing people. The close, intimate, and extremely lovingly and warm relations between the husband and his wife. The farmer has a great attachment to his farm and looks after it all the time. He has to water his fields, plow and manure them, and clean the weeds from them and prepare them for sowing. He does not just go abruptly and suddenly one day on the farm and sow the seed, but does a lot of preparation before the seed is actually sown in the field. And this preliminary work on the farm is a part of and parcel of the process of cultivation, and it's absolutely essential for securing a good bumper crop. The carelessness regarding this preparation of the farm on the part of the farmer can have a devastating effect on the quantity of well and quality of the crop. In the case of the husband and his wife, the husband does not just go home and suddenly get a hold of his wife and drop the seed and finish the process of procreation. The damage in this case could sometimes be irreparable, because the woman, unlike the farm, is very sensitive and has emotions, feelings, and very strong passions, which need full satisfaction and attention, but in a proper, appropriate manner. She is as human as the man, but comparatively more tender, gentle, and fragile in body and in mind. And therefore, she needs much more attention and consideration and time than that of the farm in the process of procreation. The husband must spend sufficient time with her to arouse and prepare her for the act of procreation. He should start with kisses on the lips, which are obviously very sensitive, and then with gradual caresses. These instructions we have to give. The young ones they need to hear this, so that they won't look at a woman as that just between the legs. And kisses the face, the ears, and various parts of the neck. And at the same time passing his hand through her hair. However, the degree of sensitivity of these parts varies considering, and they vary considerably in different individuals. But once the husband knows his partner, he can very effectively arouse her by caressing and kissing. We forget about this stuff. You get in a relationship and you forget about it. But one word of caution: these preliminaries should not become a matter of routine so that the husband always starts from the same thing or in the same way. The rhythms and caresses and kisses may be changed from simple contact of the lips to hard and deep kissing, even suction, a light and gentle touch, and sometimes a hard pressure, varying these pressures and rhythms from time to time, depending on the taste and temperament of each individual. All these preparatory exercises are fully implied in the simile contained in the above verse of the Quran. The Holy Prophet, on many occasions, explained to his companions, though not in so many words, the desirability and necessity of play with your wife. Don't do that before the act. Once he remarked that when you want to go into your wives, it is better to send a message beforehand. When asked what he meant by the message, he replied that it is better if you play a while with your wife. This hadith of the Holy Prophet ﷺ contains an ocean of sex education and phrases. It is reported from Jabir that when they were in Medina or near Medina on their return from an expedition, the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, "Wait, so that you may enter in the evening, in order that the women with disheveled hair may comb it and get ready for their husband's enjoyment." On the same expedition, when Jabir told the Holy Prophet ﷺ that he had married a widow, he replied, "Why didn't you marry a virgin with whom you could play and sport and who could play with you?" And Makil ibn Yasser reported that Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, "Marry women who are loving and very prolific." And it is reported by Abdul Rahman ibn Salim from his father that his grandfather reported Allah's Messenger ﷺ as saying, "Marry virgins, for they have the sweetest mouth, the most prolific wombs, and are most satisfied with little." And this shows the importance and significance of love play to the actual procreation act. Very simple language is used to explain the most complicated and delicate problem of the ordinary people of time, without ignoring the practical consideration or departing from decency. Modern experts of sex psychology, who have all the faculties and facilities and the anatomical and psychological data before them, fully confirm the observations and brief suggestions on sex education by the Quran and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. What they have done is merely to expand and elaborate the simple, decent, and comprehensive sex education of Muhammad. In these words, this is Dr. Noor Norman Hare, a fact which should be taken into consideration more than it usually is that love play is no less important an element of sexual life than is sexual act itself. To do full justice to love play outside of the pleasure which it affords its psychological import must not be neglected. Its function is twofold. First of all, it helps to diminish the inequalities between the sexual sensations of the man and woman, which hampers their simultaneously orgasm and often precludes it. It is a well-known fact that women usually need more time to reach her climax. If this is ignored, she remains unsatisfied after the man has his orgasm. It is not only a question of time, but also of the woman's unpreparedness at the beginning of the connection. To make the foregoing clear, we may compare it to the joint ascent by the man and the woman of a mountain, the top of which corresponds to her orgasm and his emissions. In the one case, the woman starts on their ascent from the same level, but the woman walks more slowly, so that by the time she reaches the top, the man has already been descending for some time. Having reached the top earlier, in the other case, they both go at the same pace, but the woman starts from a lower level and therefore again reaches the top after the man. In both cases, the matter can be arranged so that the man, before starting the ascent, gives his partner a suitable start by means of appropriate love play. She would then start ahead of him, and they may thus reach the top simultaneously. This is the first purpose of love play. If, however, the woman reaches the top first, there is no harm done, as the man can always follow her, whereas the opposite is disastrous, because the man may not then be able to help the woman to reach her climax. And this may lead to very many psychological and physiological complications, leading to frigidity and other sex abnormalities in women. So alhamdulillah. In closing, I just want to say to my beloved brothers and sisters, if I said something that's incorrect, that's the message that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ brought is very correct. And because he brought the message, it was the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us our sins and anything that we've done to transgress our duty, and establish our feet firmly on the deen al-fitra, the natural pattern established by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qad qamati salat.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah,